So, again, the name of today's talk is The Importance of Staying in Balance, and the song was Body, Soul, and Spirit by POW Academy. So, we're going to be talking about a balanced and complete life. This is written by someone that you would never, ever expect. He is a wrangler at his own ranch. He is a cowboy, and he did a lot of ministry at point in time, and he went on many mission trips, and he's just an amazing human being, one of the most down to earth, no crap human beings that I've seen on YouTube. And I've been listening to him for years. He has a lot of really interesting topics, and when I put in the importance of balance, his came up, and so we were going to be listening to his story. We're also going to be talking about healthy mind, body, and spirit, by an author who has created a system called the Oak Journal Method, for improving your life one day at a time. We will be having scriptural references. And so we're talking about the fact that we are created in God's image. And so he has three parts: body, mind, and spirit. And so do we. Often we get out of balance, and this takes a toll on our well-being. We are not functioning at our highest capacity. We have to pay attention to our physical, mental, and spiritual needs. And so we'll be talking about that. We will talk about our soul and how to take care of that and nurture that part of ourselves. We will talk about the fact that the spirit is, as they said in the song, in our belly and in our core. And quote, when I want to talk to God, my spirit is the door. I just thought that was a wonderful way of putting it. So we'll talk about that. So we need all three parts to be in balance. We will talk about what it feels like to be balanced and some tips on how to get there. So we're going to start off with the tips part. So this is Healthy Mind, Body, and Spirit. The gentleman who started the Oak Journal Method, his name is Keith Roberts, and he does talks all around the country. He is a teacher, a motivational speaker, and an author. So he's talking about how to live a healthy mind, body, and spirit, a life where the totality of everything we have is put together. And it says, if knowledge, we know what we're supposed to be doing, but we don't often do it. If knowledge is power, we'd all have a six-pack, he said. We know what we need to do, but not everybody pays attention and not everybody focuses on it. We know we need to eat healthy, do exercise if we want to live to our best ability in balance. So he says that there are three things that are essential for a balanced life for body and spirit and mind: exercise, schedule, and nutrition. Those are the things that he's going to talk about. I'm going to be talking about some other ones in the Here's What I Know part, but he's talking about the exercise, schedule, and nutrition. So for the mind, he says stress is actually a status symbol these days. It's not something we need to feel. So there are two things in life: things that we can control and things that we cannot control. And he says, if it's something that we cannot control, why should we waste any energy worrying about it? And if it is something that we can control, we should be at ease, knowing that we've done everything we can to make it happen. And if you haven't done everything you can to achieve your desired result, don't stress over it. Just do the work one day at a time and head in the direction in which you are going, that you want to achieve your goals. So tips and tricks for a healthy mind and body. Number one, we all need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Now, I know there are people that are going to fight me on this one, but there has been a lot of research done that when you are not getting that much sleep, your body is going to react. He said the number of people that need less than 6 hours to be able to function at their highest level is so finite that it basically doesn't exist. Sleep is one of the most important gifts that our body gives us. For the minds and the cells to generate, we have to have that much sleep. If we don't care about how you feel, he says, you may care about the way you look. So there was a study that was done with 100 people, the same 100 people. So they took the 100 people that had had a good night's sleep and they took pictures of them, and then they stayed with them for the next 24 hours and they deprived them of sleep. They did not let them get 8 hours sleep, and they took the pictures again. And 100% of the time, the people that had more sleep were voted as being more attractive to others that studied them in the study. So number two, he says, make sure that you move your body every 90 minutes. So if you're focusing on detailed work, if you're writing, if you're attending a Zoom meeting, if you're doing complicated billing, if you're paying taxes, Every 90 minutes, you need to get up and you need to move your body. You need to take a break and go for a walk. Give yourself, he said, just 5 minutes. That's all you need, just 5 minutes to get up and get away, to let your mind and your body rejuvenate. He says it's really important that you get out of your chair and that you get your blood moving. The reality is it's really important that you get out of chair anyway. As you see, I'm standing now, and I do probably 90% of my work standing. Sitting is actually very, very bad for you. So after you get your 5-minute break, you come back and you will be more productive. You will be able to solve challenging problems, which you might have been stuck on before. So move your body every 90 minutes, whether you're at home, whether you're at work, taking a class. Make sure you take the time to have structured breaks. He said, if possible, get outside. It's even more helpful if you can get some fresh air. Number 3 is music. So music, he says, is a great way to transition from different parts of the day. So he said it's most helpful if you're trying to get from something that was pressure field, like work, or if you were at a class or teaching a class or doing something that used a lot of your brain cells, and you want to come back into a state of relaxation. He says the best way to do that is to put on music that will get you to that place. From stress to mindfulness. He said it's a tool that you can use to get your body in the right frame of reference, and so that you can get your strength back. He says there are 4 things that once spent will never be returned: the shot arrow, the spoken word, the wasted seconds, and a neglected opportunity. So there's 2 books that he recommends for having a balanced life. The first is The Science of Being and the Art of Living, Transcendental Meditation, and that's by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And then the other book that he recommends is called Change One Thing, and that is by Sue Hadfield. So we will be talking about getting the soul in balance. I will be talking about that in the Here's What I Know part of all this. Okay, so this is my pleasure to bring to you A Balanced and Complete Life by Dewayne Noel. So his website is called Dry Creek Wrangler School. He is a full-time cowboy. He owns this Wrangler school. Just so you know, I had to look it up. So Wrangler is someone who trains and takes care of animals, mostly livestock and horses. He has been working with horses for 35 years. He now has his own school where people go, a small amount, like 4 or 5 people go, and they stay at his home, and he teaches them for like 4 weeks how to get on a horse, how to ride a horse, how to saddle a horse, how to take care of a horse. So he's got this called Dry Creek Wrangler School. He also has another website that is called Tack Room Bible. That's much more evangelical, but still he's the most down-to-earth person. He challenges religious beliefs that he doesn't think are true and that have led to misinformation. So he all around, I'm just so impressed with him. I've been watching him for years. So he says he just got back down after a week on the mountain with his boys. He has 3 sons and 4 daughters. And he said he had a real good visit up there. He met these 3 sons at Salmon River Lodge, which is in Idaho. And he said his son is a packer and outfitter there. So they allowed them to take a whole bunch of animals and horses, and they in return did some trail clearing for them, and they camped out. He said he had a really great time, that his son checked it out on his meter and found out that they did 36 miles total, and they went from 4,000 feet to 8,000 feet. The main camp was at 7,800 feet on top of a mountain lake. He said he warns people, I'm going to make a couple of references to the Bible, but don't get all jittery and uncomfortable. I'm not going to try to push anything on you. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the Bible. So he says, I'm not going to be preaching at you, but I have some very interesting concepts. So he talks about Genesis, that when God was creating man, he said, let us make man in our image. He speaks in the plural. God says, let us make man in our image. I believe that when God made man in his image, God is a Trinity, and he made man a Trinity too. He said, I think man, and obviously this applies to women too, we are a Trinity. We are made up of the 3 parts, body, soul, and spirit. Many times when our life gets out of balance, when we feel like we're losing it, like we have lost all sense of being calm and centered, many times when that happens, we're feeling incomplete. It's because we've ignored a third of ourselves. He says sometimes you even ignore 2/3 of yourself, and you are not complete in your Trinity. He said, let me illustrate, give you an example of how that worked out for me. He said, our first night, we were up on top of the mountain. We had traveled for several hours to get there. We went way up to the camp. We had had a long trip. We got up the next morning. He said we had a nice leisurely breakfast. They had 3 pots of coffee between the 4 of them. They sat around. They had a really good time. They packed up all the animals and the belongings. They had mules and horses, because they had mules that were carrying all of the equipment. And as I said, they were cutting the trail too. In all, they had 11 animals. So they packed up all of these animals and they got up there, and they went up to what's called Basin Lake. He said when they got there, it was a little bit late in the day. They rolled out their bed packs. They unpacked, they undid the saddles, they took off all the saddles, they led all the mules and the horses down to the mountain lake so that they could drink. He secured them, he put them up, he set up camp, they built a fire, they made a really nice supper. And they had coffee. I don't know how they have coffee and go to sleep, but that's what they do. They have coffee right before they go to sleep. He smokes a cigar. So whenever you see him, and he will admit that lots of people think it's, very unhealthy for him to be smoking a cigar, but it's something that's very important to him. And his 3 sons smoke pipes. So they had these pipes and the cigar, and then they rolled out their bedrolls, and he went to bed earlier. They were still awake. So he says, when I went to bed, I lay there in my bedroll, looking straight up through the trees at the stars. And for the evening, all 3 of my boxes were checked. Physically, the body, that's how you relate to yourself. I had physically worked very hard. I had gathered up the horses. I had packed up all the horses. I had gathered up the camp. We had ridden for several miles through the trees. I had worked hard. I had a good day. I had a good supper. I had coffee. I had a good cigar. And I was physically complete. It was a good day for a man to say, I accomplished something that not every man can do. Then I lay there on my back. I look straight up. I'm surrounded by straight, tall pine trees, straight up, pointing to the night sky. And I hear the sounds of the wind sighing softly through the pine trees. I can hear the fire behind me, still crackling and popping. I can hear the murmur of my sons back there talking amongst themselves while they are getting their bedrolls ready. As I lay there, I watch the stars come out. There's no light pollution. The stars were brilliant. The sky was clear. It was bright, and it was just the beauty of everything that fed my soul. Just to be up there fed my soul. I lay there and I got to thinking, God has really given me a lot. He has really blessed me. And as I looked up at the stars, I looked at the beauty. And I listened to the wind sighing through the trees. I just lay there and I thanked God. I thanked him for the 3 tall, strong sons who were men, honest and hardworking, who were contributing to society, men that I'm proud of. I lay there and I thought about it. I thanked him for the 4 beautiful daughters. They are beautiful, they are smart, they are sweet, they are successful. I thought of my wife that I had been with for 33 years, holding the fort down back at home as she had done for so many decades. She is the one that helped me to raise all these beautiful children. I thought of my health and the life that God has given me. In that moment, physically, my body, my soul, and my spirit was all complete. I felt like a balanced, whole man. Sometimes we go through life and some people ignore the physical. They spend their lives sitting in a chair, scrolling on their phone. They don't know how to go out and have a good day's work, how to mow the yard, go fishing, cut firewood, be able to change a tire, fix a leaky roof. Ladies, he says, and he's not being chauvinistic at all. He says ladies can do all that too, but ladies don't even know how to cook a good meal that's really healthy. They don't know how to plant a garden or to raise flowers. He says, when you don't take care of all of those physical parts of your life, he used the word squishy. You become squishy and saggy and blobby. You're not complete physically. The soul is where you react to the world around you. That's where art comes in. Listen, he says, and now I'm talking to the guys. Read some poetry. Listen to some classical music. Check out some paintings. There's more to life than work and beer and women. There's beauty out there that feeds your soul. If we don't touch, if we don't plug into the soul, the beauty that's out there, then we're just a drone and we're just plowing through the dirt, and we're not looking at the sky above us. We don't stop and listen to the cicadas in the trees, and we don't watch the butterflies. I remember one time I had a 3-day layover in Sydney, Australia. Jesse, that's his oldest son, was with me. I went to their big museum of art, he said, and I saw a painting. I saw a painting on the wall and it just stopped me in my tracks. I looked at it and it was just mesmerizing to me. I remember it. It was years ago. It was not by a famous artist. It was not a world famous painting. I think it was called A Widower and His Daughter. There was a very masculine looking man. It was back in Victorian times, so he was dressed up very formally in Victorian clothes. He was with his little girl and he was just doting on her. He said, it just reached down inside me and grabbed me. When was the last time a song or a painting or a poem or something you saw in nature just reached down and plucked the strings of your soul? You need that. The big thing today is to deny the spiritual, he says, but if we don't understand that there's something bigger, something greater, something wiser than we are, something beyond us, then there's a whole chunk of our soul that will never be complete. We need some thankfulness. We need some humility in our life. We won't get that except from something bigger and greater than we are. In the Bible, God talks about David, the David from David and Goliath. He grows up to be a king of Israel. He wrote the book of Psalms, which is full of poetry and music. He is the only man in scripture that God calls a man after my own heart. Think about it. He wasn't perfect. He committed some pretty bad sins. He repented and God forgave him. God called Moses his friend. But David, God says, that's a man after my own heart. He was a great warrior. He was very renowned in battle. He played musical instruments. He wrote poetry and great, beautiful songs. He, quote, painted pictures with his words. He was a man who worshiped God from the very core of his being. He is the man in scripture that is most in touch with all three parts of himself, his Trinity, that God had created, body, soul, and spirit. We have, he says, a very unbalanced world today, full of unbalanced people. If you feel like there's a big hole in your life that you're not getting, not money or jobs, but you're not achieving what you were intended to achieve, you may be only 1/3 of the person that you were meant to be. There may be, quote, an entire swath of you that you have abandoned, unquote. If we get out of balance in any area, we can become very ugly, unhappy, misshapen souls. This week on the mountain was a trip of a lifetime for me. And there was a moment in time where I felt that I had reached that point where I was in balance. My body was tired and satisfied and happy. My soul was full to overflowing with the beauty and the joy that was around me. And all I could do was turn around and humbly give thanks and gratitude to the God that had made it all possible. I love this man. He's just wonderful. So we're going to talk about scripture, mind, body, spirit. 1 Thessalonians 5:23, may the God of peace himself sanctify you entirely, and may your spirit and soul and body be kept sound and blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 15:44, it is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. Romans 8:16, the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are all children of God. Psalm 51:10, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Job 32:8, but it is the spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him understand. And now here's the Genesis part, Genesis 1:26. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created him. All right. So here's what I know. As you know, I start off every week by saying, all right, what do you want me to talk about? And I got that I was supposed to talk about balance. And you know me, I talk a lot about balance between work and play and rest. So I thought I was headed in that direction. And I started doing all my research on balance, and I started to see all of this research on balance on this, what I am talking about, the Trinity, the three parts of our soul. And I felt like that was my calling. That's what I was supposed to be doing this week. So he talked about the body, rest and sleep and exercise and nutrition. And he talked about food. I'm going to give you a little bit of food stories. I'm someone who has struggled with food uh, for a very long time, since I'm about 9 or 10 years old, because I had migraines. And when I had migraines, I threw up a lot. And sometimes my not migraines would last for days. And as I've said to you before, I actually have ended up in the hospital because of my migraines. But because I threw up so much so often, I got to a place where I really didn't want to eat because I was so afraid that I would get sick. And it actually turns out now, as you've all heard, I had a whole lot of food allergies. So because I had food allergies that I didn't know about, when I ate, I would get sick. So a very large percentage of the time when I ate, I got sick. So I did not have a friendly relationship with food at all. And I got to a point where I knew I had to eat because I would starve if I didn't, but eating was not something that was pleasurable or fun for me. Now, there were times where I would go to special occasions like Thanksgiving or Christmas parties, or if I was with people that I really loved that created meals for me that were special, that I enjoyed eating. It wasn't that I hated food, I just hated getting sick. And so later in life, I got into recovery, and I was working with a person on some of this food stuff. And my teacher said to me, you can't just keep living off of liquid foods, because I was drinking a lot of Ensure and Nutriment and all that kind of stuff just because I didn't like food. And I hate cooking, by the way. That's the other piece of it. I hate cooking. But she said, you can't live off of a liquid diet. You have to actually be having chew food. And it became a joke where she was calling me once a day saying, did you have any chew food? So that was in my 30s. And I realized that I really needed to be having chew food. I'm very, very lucky because soon after that, I was with a partner whom I absolutely adored for 12 years. And he was a cook, and he was a phenomenal cook. And so when he cooked, I still had food allergies, so I'd sometimes still get sick, but I looked forward to eating because there was so much love that was put into the food, and I could just taste the love in the food. And so I have had my own journey with food, but I now understand that eating properly is the only way that I can ever have the strength and resilience and power to get through the days that I need to get through. And that I do push myself pretty hard, and that I can't do that if I'm not eating right. So I've since, as you know, gotten all of the tests and found out what I'm allergic to, and I've gotten out of my diet the things that I'm allergic to. So now when I eat, I know that they're safe foods, and I know that I'm not going to throw up. As you know, I recently went through that horrible bout where I was on this medication that made me nauseous. So I was throwing again all the time. And my best friend was like, I can't believe you went through all these decades of problems with food and now you're going through again. But it's all just God laughing up there. But it's all over now, and I'm eating fine. And I do realize that eating appropriately is hugely important, hugely important. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of that, talking about the food part. Now, the soul. I did talk to you quite a bit about how to nurture our soul. We had 2 talks that were specifically on that, finding God in nature and finding God in art. Both of those are posted now. They were in the last 3 weeks, so you can always go back and check those. I do strongly believe that for me, I need to nurture the soul first. And then once my soul is nurtured and my body is nurtured, then I can nurture my spirit and have communication with God. So I talked about music and the ability to change us 100%. Just as a side, as you know, my cats are, when we have really bad storms out here, my cats are a little skittish. They've never lived in a mobile before, and the mobile kind of shakes a little bit. And I found this cat music a couple of years ago, and they love it. And so now whenever they get a little bit nervous, there is special music to calm cats down. And there's also special music to calm dogs down that I've worked with before as well. But it's just amazing because it just proves that it's the actual music itself. It's not the words, it's not the understanding of what goes with it. It's the actual music that changes you 100%. And so you can see that in cats. In the changes in me, I'm very, very aware that the music I listen to will change my mood 100%. So as I get up in the morning, I've got jazz music on, I've got happy, uplifting music. I love Charlie Brown. Right now, Charlie Brown Halloween music is playing all the time. And then obviously Charlie Brown has Christmas music too. And so I've got that Christmas music going. As soon as I start listening to Christmas music, I can just feel the shift in my body. I just change energetically, everything inside of me changes because of the music that I listen to. I also have what I call Zen spa music. My best friend used to laugh all the time because I had spa music on at home all the time. And whenever he'd come up, he'd say, "Oh my God, like I'm going to go to sleep. How do you possibly stay awake with this spa music on?" But I found it very, very calming and nurturing. And I would immediately put it on when I got home from work because it immediately changed how I felt. So I believe that music is a tool that we can use to change our moods, and it is just as strong as medicine. So reading, this is all about nurturing your soul. So reading, many teachers recommend that you read for 15 minutes a day. This is nurturing your mind and your soul. It introduces new concepts into your mind. It takes you out of your head, all of the stuff that you've been thinking about and ruminating over. It takes you out of that. It stretches your brain. So poetry is extremely helpful for you to change your mood and to change how you feel. Psalms, scripture, I do obviously read that a lot. Research proves that it changes you. It promotes growth in your brain when you put in new information. New brain cells are able to be grown because of new information. So art. There is lots of kind of art that is available to us all in terms of creating your own art. If you feel like you're not an artistic type, I hear people say to me, "Oh, but I'm not artistic." There are adult coloring books. Those adult coloring books have been extremely helpful. They've given them to people in hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, as well as medical hospitals. And those adult coloring books are incredibly helpful. So if you feel like you can't do art, get yourself an adult coloring book. And that is a way of relaxing. They have shown, there are studies that have shown that it will actually slow down your metabolism when you do that. So making your own art, whether it's painting or sewing or needlecraft or sculpture, or beading. So I used to, when I have very, very long meetings, I would take with me whatever I was working on and a box with all my beads, and I would sit there and bead for the whole time. That's very also relaxing and very calming. Also, in terms of nurturing your soul, plants will put you in touch with nature. I strongly suggest the more plants you have, the more you will feel like you're connected to nature. And obviously, animals. If you like animals and you have animals, that's one way of being connected to nature that has been shown to make you feel like your soul is expanding. So now spirit, in terms of what you can do to connect with your spirit more, obviously the number two things that we do all the time is prayer and meditation. You can have, I have constant communication with God. I've talked about it all the time. I talk to him like he's sitting right next to me all day long. And I really think the more you can get in the habit of just having constant communication with God, whether it's help me, I don't know what I'm going to do, or help me, I feel sick, or help me, I'm tired, or help me, I'm afraid, or thank you. Those are the two big ones. Help me and thank you. Gratitude lists are mandatory for my well-being. They are non-negotiable. As I've told you before, I start my every day before I even get out of bed with my gratitude lists. And anybody who works with me on a spiritual direction level is mandated to do gratitude lists. So just give you a couple examples of times when I was in full balance. The one that I remember most clearly was that time with that person that I talked about, my partner who was the cook. So I was also a runner there. So I never did full marathons, but I did half marathons. So I'd get up very early and I would run before I went to work. And then I did work. I had a long day of work. I would come home and my partner would cook this incredible meal. I remember one day I was upstairs and I was listening to Josh Groban, who happened to be one of my favorites, and I was painting because I'm also a painter. And he was downstairs cooking and I could smell the food coming up. And I was 100% in line in body, mind, and spirit. It was 16 years ago, but I can remember it like it was today. It was just one of the happiest times where every piece of me, body, mind, and spirit was in perfect alignment. Recently, you all know that I took off a day and I went to the museum. I walked a lot, so I got a lot of physical exercise. I was among art. And then I took myself out to a really nice dinner. So I satisfied the needs of both my body and my mind and my spirit. And then there was recently a time where I did a talk, obviously on a Sunday. The day before, on Saturday, I'd worked really, really hard. I'd been cleaning my house. I'd finally got my energy and my health back, and I was scrubbing the floors, and I did laundry, and I did a food shopping. I did quite a bit of physical work. And then Sunday came and I did my talk. And after I did my talk, I went to a couple of friends' house, and they made me this homemade meal. And it was meatloaf and potatoes and salad, and they made this homemade pie with pudding that they, like a chocolate cream pie sort of, but they went out of their way to get gluten-free graham crackers, to make it for me, and there was just so much love. It's literally like you could taste the love. I mean, these people loved me, and I love them. They're very, very dear to my heart. And so that was another day very recently where I had all three parts of me in perfect alignment: my physical, because I had worked so hard; my spiritual, because I had just done my talk; and my spirit, and all of that was in perfect alignment: spirit, mind, and body. So these days where you get 100% in balance are rare, but we can pay attention, and we can ask ourselves at the end of the day, how did I do? So just ask yourself, did my body get taken care of? Did my mind, and did my spirit? So being conscious of it and being aware of it is the biggest issue. Just make sure that you're paying attention. Our thoughts create our reality, and when we make it a priority to stay in balance, it will happen more often. But first, we need to acknowledge the importance of staying in balance. And so it is. Remember, at all times, the power is in you. It always has been, and it always will be.